Good morning. Welcome to episode 61 of the Driller Newscast, a weekly update on the news and stories impacting the drilling and water industry. I'm your host, Brock Yordy, and this week, episode 61, I don't have a special guest. I have a co-host, Captain Jake Fletcher of the leadership columns for the Driller will join me. And we're going to talk about some things impacting Nevada and water and water rights, along with safety topics into heat exhaustion and mitigation. I hope you enjoy. I'm very excited this week because we have the writer for the leadership column for the Driller magazine, a good friend, United States Air Force captain, retired, but was part of the Waterwell drilling team, and just all around great knowledge broker, Jacob Fletcher. Jake, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. You just referred to me as a knowledge broker, so that's a first for me in life. But doing good. The weather is still calm here in Vegas, so it hasn't gotten too hot. But we're looking forward to the warm weather and breaking out the swimming pools and the water parks and dealing with the usual summer festivities here.
So this is episode 61, and you talk a lot about baseball in the leadership column. So this is a pretty special number for you?
Yeah, 61 is definitely a big number in baseball. Last year another Yankee set an American League record. For those of you who don't know, 61 was the number that Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle were chasing for the single season home run record. And so last year, Aaron Judge set that record. And by the way, I'm not a Yankees fan. I'm just a baseball fan. So if anybody's out there thinking that I'm a Yankees fan, please don't put me in that bucket. I just love the game. And like Brock said, this is it's a great number. It's a special number for baseball, and I'm happy to be on here.
And with that, we're heading towards summer, and it's now, heat-related illness awareness month for May for construction. And I think about, man, have I been sunburnt and toasty at Nellis Air Force Base with you. What is your advice and insight for, heat-related illness, heat exhaustion, heat stroke? How do you handle it with your players? How did you handle it with your troops? How do you handle it with your colleagues?
Well, I mean, I think the key is to remember that there's no shortage of things you can do. There's nothing that's too much that you can do when it comes to trying to provide resources to your people, to plan your work schedules, things like that. There's nothing that's ever too much, because just like the opposite end of the spectrum with hypothermia, heat exhaustion can strike pretty quickly without somebody even knowing it. You don't have to be thirsty to go into heat exhaustion. We always used to get our troops water bottles. That would be one of the things that we would buy when we would go do projects, and we would have specific water bottles that we could see, clear water bottles that we could see how much they had drank. So we would walk around and I would check to see, I'd ask guys, how much have you had today? How many? And we would have somebody with a clipboard actually mark it. So we would actually track it if we were in hot enough conditions. And we would tell a guy, hey, you've only drank half a bottle this morning. You need to pick it up. You need to get some more water in you. Scheduling regular breaks. That's an important thing. Having access to some sort of indoor area they can get out of the sun when they take a break, things like that. In the military, we always used to schedule work to start super early. So if we were paving, which is a very hot construction activity, we would typically start firing up equipment at 4:30 in the morning and schedule the first truck to be there at 6. So that would give us enough time to eat breakfast, warm up our equipment, and then get the guys rolling before the sun gets up and gets too hot. Sports related, similar concepts, right? You want to have access to, we have access to misters, things that keep guys cool during practice. We give them breaks. We make sure that there's adequate water on the field. We keep a fridge stocked with drinks for them. So Like I said, there's never a shortage or never anything that's too much to do when it comes to heat, especially.
I think it's important that our bodies are one of the best safety devices we have. And when we start feeling funky, we need to say something, and I think that's very important as we watch people as they stop sweating, as they start talking erratically, or I am pretty sure it was Chief Robin out at Nellis that said, hey, listen, if you're thirsty, you're already a quart low. And I'll tell you what, I don't know why we picked summers to always be drilling in the back of that base, but it was hot. It was very hot. And I think that was a good thing to think about that, if you're thirsty, grab water for everybody else. It's a team.
Yeah, that was another good one. Yeah, I forgot about that. Anytime anyone went to the water cooler, it was kind of our thing to bring one back for everybody else. So
Well, good. So everybody be smart, be safe. Obviously, with our erratic weather from Michigan down to Miami and across the western United States, we're seeing severe weather. We saw 13 people get killed by lightning last year. Not all in construction, but that was a big high. We have extreme weather. Download the NIOSH OSHA heat index app, and it'll tell you when you're in danger, and let's really think about that.
yeah, to me, it's an easy one. Well, not easy, but it's an easier one to try to prevent. So definitely stay on top of it and stay hydrated and have a good summer.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the news. And yeah, Jake is this entire episode. Jake is not a guest, he is my co-host this week. And we were talking, and this news story popped up. And I want to preface first, with me being in Michigan and Jake being in Vegas, it's two major different climates when it comes to water. We got the Great Lakes surrounding us. We got all of this farmland. We have so many things going on. And then the Western United States with the Colorado River Compact. We've now just had this record snowmelt and rain and these atmospheric rivers and all of these things happening, but they've been in a drought. And one of the first things is Jake took over as head coach for his baseball team. And now you're, what are you for the state of Nevada?
The commissioner for American Legion Baseball for the state.
And Nevada has a big initiative right now to convert the fields, right?
Yep. My job here at the district, we just committed to a $300 million project to convert all our sports fields to turf.
That's a big deal. And that's to conserve water, right?
Yes. Yep. Conserve water. We did all our football fields first. So that was kind of the first factor. And then it went really well. So they committed the funds to go ahead and do it for the rest of our fields.
So this leads right into, you said, did you see this breaking story? What happened, Jake?
Well, I'm in grad school. I'm in my last class, and I had to pick a company for my final project, and being construction oriented, I picked DR Horton, a company that I actually interviewed for when I was looking for jobs, which was funny enough to me when I discovered this stuff. But I was looking at their company from two aspects: financially and from a corporate social responsibility aspect, which is a fancy way of saying, does a company do business in a way that we as consumers would want to support them? Are they doing things that are better for all of us or just for themselves, basically? And I came across this article where they had just purchased a little water company, and I had actually seen it in my financial search through the company, and I didn't really think anything of it when I saw it on the finance side. I said, oh, they bought a water company, big deal. But I discovered what that water company actually does, and it was pretty alarming. the name of the company is Vidler Water Company. And essentially what they do or have been doing for the last few decades is procuring water rights and basically leveraging them to the highest bidder for profit. So, and they've been doing this in the most impacted states for water, Nevada, Arizona, California, New Mexico, for at least 20 years. So it's pretty alarming.
And that purchase price for that little water speculation company is $291 million.
Yeah.
And as I took a deep dive into it, you can see over the past decade and a half the amount of times they have had to go to court, have had to have discussions, have had high level water policy discussions on, can you do speculative drilling, define a resource and then use it. And just like in most parts of the country, it's reasonable use. If you're going to step in and you're going to become a bottled water company and you're going to pump and bottle and ship outside of a watershed, there are lots of questions to be had. If you're going to come in and be a major facility that is going to use quite a bit of water, that is going to end up being injected farther into the ground or, taken out of the watershed, there are questions to be had. And we have seen from Arizona to Colorado to New Mexico, California, many things to the point where there is even a quote where it's the Vidler doctrine for water. And this comes at a time when we're looking at the Colorado River and all 7 states, and we see California right now pushing back on the river conservation process because they are senior water rights holders. We see the Navajo Nation versus the United States and versus Arizona at the same time, where in those arguments, as the Supreme Court is still deciding right now, that sure, maybe they should stop pulling out of the Colorado River or asking permission to and go to the cheap, more pumpable resource, which is groundwater. And we have a company like this that is capitalizing. And this is the American way. So there's a big argument here. We see Sackett versus the EPA. Hey, this is my land. This is an adjacent nexus to me affecting the waters of the United States. There was a court case last week in Columbus, Georgia, where a family was awarded $135 million due to a solar farm going in, and they didn't have the right erosion and water protection practices in, and it affected the streams and the ponds in the area and became a nuisance. And this massive company, no different than a DR style company, went, wait, we had a subcontractor that we hired. They were supposed to follow all the right rights. And so we see when it's convenient, we go after the protection of water. But when it's capitalism, sometimes we don't.
Yeah. It's interesting, this company, Vidler Water Company, their history, some of the stuff that I was reading, the company, their namesake tried to do a pipeline through the Colorado Rockies, as we were talking about before we got on. And then somebody wanted to use that tunnel as a water resource. So they wanted to convert it. And that's, one of the big kickoffs to all the legal battles that they've had. I will give them credit. They have, they've hired people that really understand water law and some of the experts of water. And it just makes you think, some of those people spent a lot of time on the municipality side of protecting water. And I guess I understand why you'd want to switch sides if you were going to get paid quite handsomely to do that. But, it goes back to what I was saying, is that corporate social responsibility. And I was bringing this up in my class this week that, it's all well and good that this company is successful, but at what cost? What is it? My kids are the ones who are going to have to deal with the effects of people going out and extracting groundwater and messing with the aquifers and the flow of groundwater in our state. These folks that own these companies aren't going to have to deal with that issue because they have enough money that they can go somewhere and buy whatever water they need, and we, over the last few years, our country's talked a lot about social issues and things. And, access to water is a fundamental social thing. Water is the most basic thing we need for life. And if we have companies that are trying to leverage the most basic resource we need to live, then I have a problem.
It's tough because we just saw in Arizona, they pulled multiple drilling permits from a Saudi Arabian owned farming company that had alfalfa. We have seen in the past 2 years, building permits halted in Phoenix and in Utah and in California due to lack of water resources. I've said multiple times that sometimes I believe trout and salmon and wildlife impacted on rivers have more protection or advocacy than we do on groundwater as we discuss it. And as we look at extracting from different aquifers, and obviously the reason that Vidler was purchased was to be able to continue to, provide water to, new housing developments that are farther out in a pipeline, that we just don't have the support for. It's we see a lot in Nevada paving the way, and not paving, I guess, turfing the way and making sure, we're conserving as much water as possible.
If you ask most baseball coaches, they don't want to turf their field because, they take a lot of pride in working on the field, and they, playing on natural grass, it's cooler, right? We just talked about heat. We're these fields now, heat becomes an even more consideration because we are expected to make these sacrifices while others get to use a resource for gain. And, I get it, right? Expanding housing markets, populations shifting, new businesses. One of the areas they talked about in that article is Reno, and the Tesla factory that went in up there, and all the business that's coming to there. And that's great, right? Those are jobs for people. It's a beautiful area up there. I think it's great that their economy gets a boost from that. But the way that we, and this is something that goes back to the military, when we go into an area, right, the first things we have to look at, tell us this is how many people we want, and we go in, we do our site visits, we look for a water source, where can we build a runway, how can we do all these basic things, which is, I guess the beauty of me being in the military was I have that mindset that if we're going to do something, we need to ensure first that we can support it, and some of these aquifers, they don't even know. And that's what the courts are pushing back is, can you guys prove that this aquifer can support what you're putting in for, I think the article said 100 years, or I think it was 100 years that they had to be able to support water for the houses that they were building, which that's a tall order to be able to prove that.
It is. And that's the Vidler doctrine came from the idea that if you were just seeking out water and water rights for profit in the future, what is the greater good there? And it's obviously a discussion that needs to continue, especially in the Western United States. But, we are, water is the new oil, and not even new, has been for, at least the last 25 years. And we see it from the film Too Big to Fail at the very end, Christian Bale's character going, you want to invest something, invest in water. And so it's, is it forethought? Is it being on top of it? Is it developing a resource that we didn't have and then providing it to people that want to live in that area? Or is it irresponsibility of living in an inhabitable location.
I think about it every day. There's at our field, there's a flood channel that's right by our field. You have to cross a bridge across that flood channel to get to our field, actually. And the last few days, I've noticed, in the 18 months I've been coaching there, I hadn't seen water flow through there except when it rained, and I've been seeing water come through there. And so it's exciting for me because I'm thinking that's a good sign. Water must be moving. We're getting water from somewhere. I don't know where it's going, but yeah, it's, when it rains here for me, I get excited because to me, that's one more bit of resource that's coming back to us that we need. So, and having to have worked on my own grass, I understand how difficult it is to live in this climate and do the things that we want to do. And, that's why I'm in favor of a lot of things to take care of these resources because, where I grew up, we didn't have these problems. Like you said, you're in Michigan, you guys have a lot of different climate. And in Maryland, we didn't have these problems where I grew up. We had great watersheds. We protected them for the most part. There were a lot of laws and things done to protect our watersheds there. And unfortunately here, it's just, they're playing catch up, and it's a tough game when you're behind.
It is. And I want to give credit to the GRIST environmental climate newsletter or paper articles that are put out. You can subscribe to them. This article was featured in the Reno Gazette Journal as well. And although Jake and I both work in the water industry as drillers and whatnot, we don't have a background in water law or, hydrology. So, there are definitely some other folks that we'd love to hear and pulled into this. It's just, we need to be talking about it as an industry. We get very busy out there on the rig and running. And obviously, how you pull permits in the Western United States versus right now, how they're pulled in the Great Lakes states is very different. But we're also seeing the Ogallala, negatively impact to a point that we don't know how to repair it. There's lots happening that we have to start thinking about what is the best stewardship for our water. And ultimately, now that we know that groundwater is a bigger and bigger piece of that pie, and that's only 26% of our entire country's population is consuming groundwater right now, and we're saying up it. What is that recharge like?
Yeah, and when you think about it, our industry has the power to, because we are the people who go out and bring this resource out of the ground. We have the power to stand up and have a big say in, that's not right. We're not going to support, you guys doing this to a resource. And like I mentioned to you, when we talk about drilling and, we have this very dreamlike idea of, we get to explore the unknown and bring this resource to people because people need water. And this concept turns it into a nightmare. And we have the ability to say, like I said, we need to be responsible. We need to understand what the impacts are before we sign on and support those things.
I want to thank Jake for coming on and for writing killer leadership articles every month for the Driller. I value your insight, and I think today with you, in your career in Nevada, working for the school system and getting to coach the next generation of who could be drillers and construction workers, you have a lot of great insight that we all need to be listening to.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, buddy. It's been a pleasure as always. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Jake. Thank you for joining us for episode 61 of the Driller Newscast. Thanks again, Captain Fletch. It was great having you on, Mr. Commissioner. So a lot happening with water doctrine, groundwater policy, water rights. We're going to continue to see these are bigger topics. Yes, we can deep dive much more into the hydrogeology of the Western United States and what we've seen with the recharge and what will happen. But at the end of the day, we as the groundwater professionals, we as the drilling industry need to be very cognizant of what's happening and how these situations are pushing out. We got tribal nations expecting more water that should have that water. We have 7 Colorado compact states looking at all avenues for the right amount of water and how it's proportioned. We can see in Mississippi right now that they are going to change how they charge for water and what that looks like to the end user. We have PFAS pushing across the country. And as those limits are finally settled, that's going to raise water prices. It's a great time to be in this industry, but it is very important for you to be in the know. Have a safe and productive week.